Hi everybody, Natalie here with Novel Thoughts. Today I'm doing the Witches mini-series review from Terry Pratchett's Discworld. So this is my second installment for Discworld. The first one, I've already done a video on Death mini-series review, so if you want to check that out and see if you're interested in reading about Death, go ahead and look at that. But today, it's about the witches. So, let me go ahead and tell you a little bit about them. So first you have Granny Weatherwax. She is the crone. She is tough as nails, very exacting, but she's incredibly good at what she does. She often struggles between being a good versus bad witch. Then you have Nanny Og. Nanny Og is the mother. Nanny Og is Granny Weatherwax's best friend, but she's very different. Every way that Granny Weatherwax is hard as nails, Nanny Og is as soft as a marshmallow. She's constantly making innuendos. She's very commanding in her own right. She has a massive Og clan. She also loves beer. She also likes singing the Hedgehog song. So that's Nanny Og. Then you have Magrat Garlic. Her mother meant to name her Margaret, but it didn't quite work out. They missed a letter, so it's unfortunate. Magrat is the maid. Anyway, she is one of those type of witches that wears all the bangles and the big earrings, and she wears a lot of like earthy looking clothing, and she likes herbs. She's a really good herbalist. She's super into going by the book. She's described as the wet hen of the novel. I actually really like Magrat. Yeah, she's a bit sentimental. She has some interesting quirks in the fact that she doesn't quite know who she is or how to be assertive, but she, I admire her always trying to like stand up for herself and always trying to figure out who she is and what she wants, and she goes with a lot of fads, but that's okay. She's a super fun character, and a lot comes her way in the course of the books. And eventually we'll be introduced to Agnes Knit, and she has an alternative personality identity called Perdita X, and it's basically everything she wishes she was. So Agnes is very like practical, and she's very wise. She's very, very obese, and it becomes a point of the novel, kind of Terry Pratchett's way of shedding commentary on fat shaming and thin privilege and things like that through Agnes's character. And anyway, lots and lots and lots of humor surrounding her character. But she's super smart, and she has a great personality. She's an amazing singer. She can harmonize with herself. She tries out the opera at one point. She's just super fun. But you don't actually get introduced to her until the third book. Yeah. Anyway, so those are the witches. Now let's talk about the books. So the first one that's in the main series is Weird Sisters. Before that, we do have a little side story that Granny Weatherwax is involved in called Equal Rights, but the main one is Weird Sisters. Now this book, one thing you have to know about all of Terry Pratchett's witches books is that they parody and commentate on something. So whereas Death's series is very existential and comes up with questions about life and humanity, the Witches series parody our stories. And so Weird Sisters is a parody of Macbeth, and then the side story is a parody of Shakespeare's life, which is super, super fun. And so there has been an assassination in the Lanker Kingdom, and the nature and the witches aren't quite sure. They like the new king who's slowly going insane. And so basically they try to figure out a way to not meddle while meddling. It's a super fun book. One of the main things, all of these books, they parody something and they all have like a central message. Some sort of phrase that keeps coming up in the book. Usually it's coined by Granny Weatherwax. She'll say something that just is very practical, but it makes a lot of sense, and it can actually be quite profound when put in the context of the book. So in this one, Granny Weatherwax is introduced to the theater, and she doesn't like it. She's like, there's a magic to the theater, is how she puts it, and it's in the common people's hands, and they can make a whole new world just because they don't like the other one, and they do it just by saying that it's something else that it isn't. And she just says that's a lot of power. And so that's kind of the idea of Weird Sisters. It's the power and the magic of the theater. And it's a riot. It's super fun. If you like Shakespeare at all, Yeah, you'll like Weird Sisters. So the next book is Witches Abroad. This one, the witches go on a little trip. So in the first book, the three witches are Granny Weatherwax, Nanny Ogg, and Magrat Garlic. In the second book, it's the same three. And this one is a parody on fairy tales in general. Towards the end of the novel, we get a specific parody on parts of Cinderella. And throughout the course of the novel, you have a lot of foreign touristy type jokes thrown in. A fairy godmother has passed away and bestows, essentially, leaves her wand to Magrat. And so all of a sudden Magrat is in charge of being a fairy godmother and has no idea how that goes, and all she can make are pumpkins out of her wand. And so she's off to Genua to try to figure out whatever mission she's been given, and Granny Weatherwax and Nanny Ogg insist that they come along, and Nanny is super good at understanding foreigners. So that's quite humorous, and Granny does not like being out of her element, so that's also very funny. Some of the things that are quite profound in this book, though, are the idea that you can't force a happy ending. All you can do is make an ending. There's a certain empowerment to this book. Granny is really into this idea that people make their lives happen and they choose if it's happy or not. Granny really starts to develop as a character. You learn a lot more about her, you learn why she's as hard as nails, you learn what she's capable of, and you learn a little bit about her more human side. The third book is Lords and Ladies. So this book is where we are introduced to ATEN'T. This book is a parody on A Midsummer Night's Dream, and it also has some commentary on the romanticization of elves and witches. So you have the practical witches who are midwives and herbalists and understood just very practical things that help the village run, like Granny Weatherwax. And then you have these new witches who wear black and paint their fingernails black and have the like dangly earrings. And then when it comes to elves, you have the like ugly, short, stout, annoying elves that we have pre-Tolkien. And then you have the beautiful, graceful, immortal elves post-Tolkien. And so there's a lot of commentary on how we see the world, what's reality, what's romanticization, and then of course there's also just the Midsummer Night's Dream basic parody setup of this book. And so at this point, Magrat might be getting married, and that obviously throws off the trio of the witches. One of the main profound thoughts of this book is that if you can't die, you can't live. And if you can't live, you can't change. And if you can't change, you can't learn. And that's one of the main tenets that Granny Weatherwax is promoting in this book, is that learning is what makes life, life. In Lords and Ladies, ATEN'T is just a side character. She's one of the girls who's like trying out the black dresses and the black nail polish and seeing what witchcraft is, right? The fourth book, Masquerade, is a parody of Phantom of the Opera. It also has some commentary on musicals, and it also makes some jokes about other Andrew Lloyd Webber musicals. Agnes decides to leave Lancre Kingdom and go to Ankh-Morpork, which is the main city, to join the opera. She doesn't want to be the next witch. She's pretty sure that now that Magrat is married, that she will become the next maid to fill the trio, and she doesn't want that. She wants to choose her own life, and so she escapes to join the opera. This is where we really start to get into some of the fat-shaming, thin privilege commentary that Terry Pratchett embeds through Agnes's character. And so what ends up happening is she goes to join the opera because she has an amazing voice, and Granny Weatherwax and Nanny Ogg follow her, and we get into a whole bunch of adventures. And meanwhile, Nanny Ogg has printed an aphrodisiac cookbook that is incredibly powerful and very, very effective, and that is a hilarious part of the book. And then you have kind of the profound commentary of the book, and it's the concept that masks are powerful and almost have a magic unto themselves, because when you put on one mask, you hide your face, but you reveal another. So the final book is Carpe Jugulum. Now this one, Agnes has come back to Lancre. She's officially a part of the Witches' Coven. Magrat is married. She's doing well, and for some reason the King of Lancre invites vampires to his baby's naming. And so it swiftly becomes a parody of Dracula. And what's interesting about this book is up to this point, Granny Weatherwax has slowly been stepping up the ante with her abilities and saving the day and getting to know her characterization through the other characters, specifically Nanny Ogg. Whereas in this book, all of a sudden she's just gone. Like, Granny Weatherwax really isn't present for much of the novel, at least half. And that was really surprising to me. Some of the side commentary and parody is about religious schisms, and it essentially makes fun of the Catholic Church, specifically the medieval Catholic Church, and what it means to try to force everybody to believe in what you believe in. The witches hate this priest that comes in, and so that's a really fun side aspect of this book. One of the profound thoughts for this book, though, is Granny is talking to the priest, and one of the things she specifically says to him is, a sin is when you treat people as things. There is no black and white. There's only white that gets grubby. And that's a really, really interesting idea to me. The idea that objectification of human beings is the problem. And obviously this fits in the course of the novel because that's what the vampires do to human beings, is they objectify them as meat and food and things like that. But the fact that that also fits into this religious commentary that is kind of threaded, woven throughout the course of the book, really makes this book a very interesting read. Once again, Agnes is just awesome. I loved when she was introduced into the dynamic of the witches. It's just really fun. And finally, I mean, this is really where Granny shows who she is, you know. She's been developing throughout the whole course of the novel, and all of a sudden she's gone. Like I've already mentioned, she's not in most of this book, but when she comes back, some of the things she does are just beyond belief, and it is so cool. And so that is the Witches series. There are some other books that Granny Weatherwax is involved in, but they're not like the strict witch mini-series, so we'll just stick to these 5. I would highly recommend the Witch series. Death is one of my favorite characters, similarly Granny Weatherwax is as well, but the reason that the Witch series is so fun is because of the types of situations they get into and because of the multi-character dynamic that you have that's not as present in the Death series. So these are hilarious. If you like parodies, the Witch series is for you. Getting into more Terry Pratchett is always a good thing, and this is just another little mini-series that will fill out your understanding and love of Discworld. So that's my second installment of Discworld and how to read it in a mini-series format, which is how I'm doing it. Pretty soon I'm going to be starting Guards, which is the first book of the Watch series, and eventually I'll be able to tell you all about the Watch. So that should be coming next in my talk about Discworld, and if you guys want to subscribe, there will be a button, and we can talk more about books later. Thanks for coming, guys. I'll see you later. Bye.